All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, this is Mike, KO4, PDI, the ham fun guy. We're going to have a little fun tonight. What do you notice different about the picture? Let me see. What could it possibly be? It doesn't say ham fun with KO4 PDI. It says 40 ARISS. It was a symposium I went to earlier this year, and I got to at Kennedy Space Center. It was great. The best part was the second day I realized, hey, with my pass for ARISS, I can go in before the general public was allowed in. That was the coolest thing in the world. I love Kennedy Space Center. I have a season pass for it. I go down there 3-4 times a year, and I love it. And the reason I love it is because the stuff you see there is the real thing. It's not well, one thing is a replica, but other than that, these are the real capsules and the real rockets that were used all through the space program. When you go to the rocket garden, you could see that. So while I was there, the gentleman who is the executive director of ARISS in the United States, he's also international chairperson of ARISS. And he's a great guy. And I met him there, and he put together this whole shindig that we had a great time at. And good food, too, by the way. We actually finished it off with dinner under the Saturn V rocket in the Saturn V building. And the man who made that all possible, well, with his team, Frank Bauer. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Frank Bauer. There he is. Hey, Don came in the chat too. He's in the chat. I see him. All right. We see you, Don. Mike's doing good. He's tired because he just got back from Wisconsin. Frank, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell me how you got stuck with that predicament of being the executive director.
That goes back a long way, you know. But welcome everybody that's online, and I'm Frank Bauer. My call sign's KA3HDO. As Mike said, I'm the executive director of ARISS, Amateur Radio on the International Space Station, and that's ARISS USA, and then also the international chair. We're kind of set up as a working group, and internationally a working group, but in the United States we're a separate nonprofit entity. So and yeah, the 40th anniversary activity was a blast. I mean, it took me about 3 months to recover, but I think my whole team, it was a big deal making it happen. But it was right. It was the 40th anniversary of the first use of ham radio by a human in space, Owen Gary at W5LFL, and it made sense to recognize that, celebrate that. You know, the ham community from the very beginning has been excited and interested in having hams in space doing amateur radio. You know, going back to missions before the space shuttle. Unfortunately, those never got to happen because of the challenges that go along with human spaceflight. So, but we did it on shuttle with Owen.
The things that I was impressed with was Owen's son was there. What was his first name again?
It's Richard Garriott.
Richard.
Yes.
And hams are hams. And when he came up and he was talking about his main goal was to get more contacts than his father got, that was the funniest thing in the world. I was laughing at that. I'm like, he's in competition with his dad to get more contacts from space than his dad got. And he did. Yeah. He ended up getting more.
Yeah, he did. He didn't realize it, but he did after the fact. Yes, exactly.
So I was intrigued. When you did it on the shuttle, you had a handheld, and you didn't even have an antenna on the outside of the shuttle. You had this thing you made to stick in the window for the antenna, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah,
who thought of that?
Well, I mean, you know, there are a bunch of hams at the Johnson Space Center Amateur Radio Club. Lou McFadden has been involved. W5DID has been involved since the very beginnings of this from a hardware development perspective. And
right. I'd like to get him on here one night too. Talk about the tape measure
it's an interesting. Yeah, that would be really good. I'd love you to do that, and then make sure we have a recording of it, because, you know, I'm really pushing oral history right now in our team. I mean, we need to get, you know, all the past fully documented, if you will, and so. But yeah, they tried really hard, and I had some of the documentation at the 40th, but they tried really hard to have a outside antenna. The hard part's that feed through.
Right.
We talk about, it's challenging to get that feed through in our house. Think about
Yeah.
trying to go through a pressurized vessel that has humans on board. That's the tough part. But
Yeah. It
so
can't leak.
we never broke free on that one on shuttle. But clearly, the contacts were good. I mean, it was the beginnings, and they weren't. The antenna, he had to orient, make sure the antenna was oriented ultimately they put it in the right window to make sure that, during the pass it would work, and not be looking out at at space. And it worked out really well. I mean, it wasn't, I will say it wasn't total armchair quality, but it was really, really good. I mean, if you had a decent antenna, it was armchair quality, but,
Right.
and you could get about 2 or 3 real good minutes out of it, and that was a once in a lifetime opportunity, not only for the hams but the students. I mean, we started on Owen's flight, it was all about the hams, and I mean, I was involved. My role in that, and this leads up to that question of how I'm executive director. My role at STS-9 was I worked at NASA Goddard, and Goddard was responsible for communications. So those of you that have been around a while, during Owen's flight, me and several other individuals, Andy Zwerko and Rich Zwerko and John DeCilio, basically set up a retransmission capability, and ARL got permission from the FCC for several of the NASA amateur radio clubs to transmit the air to ground. But
Right.
the more important thing is, if you think about 1983, they're basically, for the general public, there was no internet. So we were using that to broadcast the not only the air to ground, but to give people regular updates on Keplerian elements, so that they could use them in their Commodore 64s at the time, if you will.
Wow.
Or Atari 400s or 800s, and then also to give live updates on what was going on the shuttle and Owen's flight and his use of the radio. So
Right.
and for some people, it was good for us to just give rise and set times for different areas of the world. So we were doing this on like 4 or 5 stations. So that was my role in it. But the big
Gordon
role,
West. Gordon often talks about being one of the first to make contact with the shuttle. I forget where he was at, but he had worked on back when that was just starting out. He talked to him, and that was pretty cool. Back in '83, I wasn't even a ham. I've only been a ham going on 4 years now, and I dove in headfirst into the deep end without my swimmies. I spent a lot of money I shouldn't have spent, but the one thing that I was hooked on was satellite communications. My Elmer tells me, "Oh, you can talk to satellites." I went, "Really? How do you do that?" He goes, "I have no idea." What do you mean you have no idea? He didn't know. And it wasn't because he didn't know what he was doing. He just didn't understand it. He never looked into it. So that's when I dove in, and I watched every Sean Kutzko video I could find. I looked at every piece of equipment you could buy. And then I ran into these guys from Long Island that make the CSN Technologies. They make the SAT box, the self-contained antenna tracker, they call it. And once I got that, I did a video on that too. I called it the Rosetta Stone of satellite workers because it made it so easy. But it's basically a crossband repeater in space. Even the CubeSats, that's what they are. And now you have some IO-117, which has been down for a while now. That's digital packet data. And then you got the ISS that has APRS and voice crossband. And that's really nice. Now that I know, let's see, Don's just telling me something. Matthew Dominic was active today. He skipped that pass. Matthew Dominic was on it today, he said. So I heard a guy.
Yeah, that always happens to me too.
Yeah, right. It's always the one you don't listen to that's the one they're on. But Don was the guy I was telling you, W8 CPT, that has 5 contacts in the last 2 months. and I'm
Very
I'm
impressive.
I'm happy for him. And he 2 more, and he equals me. I got 7. I got Woody Hoberg twice, and I got Kjell Lundgren 5 times.
Mhm.
And I would love to have a longer conversation with him, but I know there's hundreds of thousands of people trying to get in there, so
Yeah.
I don't want to hog the time. But I always make sure I say something like, I got Woody on the 4th of July weekend one time, and I told him Happy 4th. And the next time I think I got him, I told him, be safe, come home soon. And he splashed down right off the coast where I live in the Atlantic, which was pretty
Yeah.
cool. So, hey, Don, if you want to come on with me, uh, if you want to come on, Don, go to the StreamYard link and you can come on and talk to Frank yourself. So, Frank, the next place I want to go is that's where it was when you
Mhm.
started on the shuttle, and
Mhm.
then it went to the ISS. When did it start on the ISS?
So actually, there was a middle piece, and if you look at your circle around the Eris logo, you'll see that it started with SAREX, or the shuttle, and sometimes it was called Space Amateur Radio Experiment. Then
Right.
then then we basically traveled with NASA and the space agencies as they moved from vehicle to vehicle. So shuttle was building the space station at the time, but before international crews got on the International Space Station, the Mir space station was up there. So NASA had a series of astronauts over about 2 years where they actually went on the Mir space station. So we were doing that for a while, and that was where we learned international collaboration, because the Russians and the Germans and the United States was all involved in hardware development, as well as as the operations and things like that. So and in all of this, our, and then in 1996, we had been pushing very hard to get amateur radio on space station. And finally, what ended up happening was that, there's the millions of hams that are around the world. Everybody has their own ideas of how things should be done. And so what NASA challenged us to do in 1996 was for ARL and AMSAT to go to the international community and develop one team that can be the voice for amateur radio into the amateur radio station and into the International Space Station. In other
Okay.
words, they only wanted one. They wanted to hear from one group that represented all of the amateur radio community. So we set up in 1996 a working group of 5 regions, which represented the 5 major space agencies of space station, and called it ARIS, Amateur Radio on the International Space Station. And that's where it started. And then, of course, the first astronauts that actually lived on space station was in November of, it was called Expedition 1, was in November of 2000. So from 96 to 2000, we were building hardware systems. Our Russian colleague in the beginning was able to get us feed throughs. Remember the important thing, and an early feed through, because it was an antenna that was used for rendezvous and docking that was in VHF. So we had an antenna to use. So that was
Wow.
great. So 2 weeks after the crew came on board, we were operational. And we were operational because that it was the only way at the time that the crew could talk to their families. They used ham radio to talk to their families, and we had our ground stations around the world for ARIS were helping the crew talk to their families on a periodic basis. So that was a big deal. They got it involved in the school contacts, and then ultimately we continued building engineering systems to fly, and we're in now. You can operate packet, APRS, and voice repeater at the same time. That's because
Right.
we have two stations in space station, one in
Right.
the service module and one in the Columbus module.
That's impressive. And I'll tell you this: when I went to the symposium it was in March, right? Is that when we had it? March or February?
Late
February.
February, yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at the radio and everything, and the one thing that caught me, and I talked a little bit to Lou about it, and I talked to Randy Berger about it too, the power supply. Why do
Hmm.
you need that fan? Because I posted pictures of it in my group and everything. People say, why do they need a power supply like that? And Randy explained it to me, but you tell me why, so the people that are watching get to know what the reason why that power supply was so elaborate. Let's just
Yeah.
say that.
So you mentioned Lou McFadden. Lou's been, like I said, involved from the beginning, and he's our chief engineer. Randy is our director of engineering. So Randy Berger.
Right,
Um, when we wanted to fly the next generation systems, the biggest problem we had was a power supply. We wanted to have a power supply that was multifunctional, that could support a lot of different, look, a ham shack's got so many wires in it, electrical cords and everything else. We wanted to make sure we could run multiple systems. And so that was
right,
one piece. Then the other piece is, even in the US segment of space station, there's 120 volt DC, not AC, 120 volt DC and a 28 volt DC. So we had to, and in the Russian segment, it was only 28 volt DC. So we needed to make this power supply to be able to support both 28 volt DC and 120 volt DC as inputs, and then a myriad of voltages to support different things. We've got, it'll support 28 volts out. It'll support 13.8. I wonder why we picked that volts. And
maybe that
and
Kenwood radio just works on that.
just a portable radios, yeah, the ham radios, and then 5 volts. We've got several USB ports on there, as well as 6 volts, which the VCH1, the slow scan little converter that Kenwood built, a while back, supports 6 volts, and we were using batteries, and so we wanted to get away from that. So
Right,
that's why that system. So it's got like 4 ports on the front of it that support different things, but each one of those ports can handle, like I said, 13.8, 28 volts and the like. And so, it's a multi-function, a multi-voltage power supply and multifunctional.
right. So
It's
to
a work of
work on
art.
the Russian side or
It,
work on the American side, and you work, yeah, that's why you
it's a
did
work
that.
of art. It's a work of art, and Carrie Banky from our team was really the lead designer and all of that. I mean, it took a microwave engineer, Carrie Banky, to build a DC power supply. He did that, and he one of the things, just so you're aware, one of the first things we were told is, you realize you're building a big power supply for space station, and what the safety ramifications of that could be. And we took that very, very
Yeah,
strongly.
that's
And you think about
amazing.
that. Yeah, it's
I
a
mean, just when I was looking at it, the thing is so heavy duty. It's so durable. Everything's stainless steel screw heads to cover the plugs, and everything, and the cloth they put over the cables so you don't get the dust in the air. It's incredible, the design, and it's just a piece of art. You're right. It is a piece of art. So that's what we have now. Where are we
Mhm.
going? Are we gonna be on Gateway? Or are we gonna be on? And
Yeah, yeah. So you saw a little bit of preview of that while you were at the 40th anniversary celebration, and that is a system we call Caviar, which was, let me just say that, you know, Eris was going from the beginning, before there was even a SARX. ARL and AMSAT have been tremendously powerful in being able to help the amateur radio community bring space to the ham radio community. And so, when we saw a request for proposals from NASA to fly on Artemis 2.
oh wow,
It on the Orion vehicle. We AMSAT and Eris, because by then we were an entity, talked about, well, let's put in a proposal for this. And because, well, we knew that our odds were real low, and as it was, everything to do with getting the word out, externally, external engagement. We knew that, like Nat Geo or the likes of those organizations were probably going to be the winners of this. But we wanted to get our design forward. So we developed something called Caviar. And that stands for, it's an acronym, Communications Using Audio, Visual, Imaging via Amateur Radio. Okay, Caviar. That system is as it's described, it's audio, it's video, it provides imaging, and so the idea is we're developing something for not only the moon, but also we could use it on space station as a test case.
Right.
And it's the 5 and dime system. Those that are familiar with satellites, it's C-band up and X-band down. And the beauty of it is it's multi-mode, so it can handle all these different kinds of capabilities. So
what is it? It's actual video, ham TV. That's what I was trying to think of. Ham TV is what they're calling it, right?
That's the current generation. So that's coming up again. We've relaunched ham TV, and we're waiting for the space agencies to finish their placement analysis that they need to do, because there's so many payloads on space station now. They really got to figure out where they can put us. Where we used to be, there's another payload right in that vicinity. So they're trying to work that out. Once we get through that, we're going to have the video downlink again on S-band with ham video.
Great.
But now ham video,
new radios.
ham video is DVB-S, and what we're trying to do is to go a step further from that, beyond that, to allow us to have all of the capabilities, not just video and audio, but also, like I said, imaging and the like. So transponder capabilities and things like that. So that's being worked. You mentioned Gateway. We're still trying to get on Gateway. It's still early, I will say that, and we'll see how that goes. But what I challenged Randy to do, what we've all challenged the team to do, is to look at how we could use this in different venues. And actually, when AMSAT and ARIS were working on this, we wanted it to be small but powerful, and because that way there we could put it in different vehicles. It could go into a lunar rover. It could go in, on the surface of the moon. It could go on one of the landers. So we're looking around and we're talking to different people about it, about what we could do and how it could be done. I will say,
I'll tell you, I got a couple of questions here in the chat. One guy's asking, this is Don again. So is there a certain time UTC that the astronauts wake up daily? Like, what is their day? Do they work 12 hours a day and sleep 12 hours a day? Do they get free time? Is that when they use the radio, when they have free time? How does that work?
Good question. They are on UTC. So if you think about it, their work day would start like at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and end around 5, 6 o'clock at night. Okay, UTC time. So that's a good thing to realize. And then they have buffers on either side for, hygiene and
working out.
And yeah. Well, they've got to work out several hours every day. So they're doing that. That's part of. And then when they get some free time, if you want to call it free, they will get on the radio. If you think about it, there's about 400 experiments on space station, and we're one of them. ARIS is one of them because we're an experiment. But
I love watching them up there because I vicariously lived through them. I told this to Jim Lovell when I met him at the opening of the Astronaut Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. I said, I lived my life vicariously through you. I thought what they did was so amazing, and I wanted to learn it. And I also met Walt Cunningham, who never got to go to the moon because He was in the was it a I'm trying to remember. I think it was Apollo 4 when they tested the new capsule
Apollo
and
7. They were
Apollo
sick
7.
and they were a little
Yeah.
cranky and they didn't
Well,
fly.
Wally Schirra was the commander, and they
Right.
finished everything they had to do. And NASA said, "Hey, we want you to do this." He said, "No, we didn't train for that." He's like, "No, we want you to do it." Well, uh, I'm trying to remember the Capcom. God, I can see his face. I can't remember his name. The head of the program back then that would contact the astronauts. He said, "None of you are ever going to fly in space again if you don't do this." And Shiraz said, "I don't care." And they didn't do it. And none of them got to fly again. Who
Yeah.
knows? Walt Cunningham might have been a good astronaut to work on the shuttle, but no.
Or on the surface of the moon, you never know.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
I
before the lunar
find it
flight.
absolutely incredible to watch them. And all right, so we talked about how it started. We talked a little bit about what they're doing now. I saw a video of the astronauts that just absolutely was amazing. And I didn't have my cable to update my TLE data, so I missed the pass. But what they did was they were moving the space station a little. They were doing a little thrust to move it, and all the astronauts were in one unit, floating in the center, not touching anything. And when they fired the rockets, they all like went back.
Yeah.
The inertia took them back.
There's Newton's law right there.
And they were all laughing. And they were all laughing how fun it was. I'm like, they're playing up there. They're having a good time. I love it. I'm glad they're enjoying themselves.
Well, that's the thing. When you're doing something that's really hard, being able to have a little bit of fun is important too.
Exactly. It's absolutely amazing to watch this stuff. So we're looking into this, huh? Where you have nothing to do with any of the CubeSats or anything. You're just strictly you and NASA. You're the connection of ham radio to NASA.
Well, Eris is the primary connection. Well, is the connection for human spaceflight to NASA.
Okay.
Amateur radio, human spaceflight. Of course, there's with CubeSats. The CubeSat launch initiative activity is a different thing, and AMSAT's been very successful in getting opportunities there with the Fox satellites and things, and that's fantastic. I mean, we need satellites to get, it like you, Mike. Satellites capture the imagination of people. Human spaceflight captures the imagination of people.
Yeah,
and so
it's amazing to me. I'm still in awe. That's why I go down there every couple of months. I'm down there.
It's not easy to make a satellite contact. People don't realize how challenging it is to make sure you're pointed in the right direction, and things like that. So, but and then you got everyone else that's higher power radio that you're trying to overcome, and sometimes, and like for the voice repeater. So,
right. Well, I've learned even with my 9700, I don't need much power. Usually but the ISS, I find myself when I'm doing less than 25 watts, sometimes I don't break the PL tone or the CTSS tone, so Motorola doesn't sue me. Because PL did you know that PL is a copyright of Motorola? I don't know if you knew that. So if you use the term PL tone,
I wouldn't doubt it, because they invented a lot of things. So
well, I just became an ambassador for AMSAT, and the guy that's the head of the program watched one of my live feeds. He says, "Don't use the word PL. Don't use PL, because Motorola don't like that." I'm like, okay. So I say CTSS tone. That's what it is. Now, so you don't do much contact on your own. You're working with the program to keep it all moving and progressing into the future. So we're looking into.
I'll play around once in a while, because I got to stay at least proficient in understanding what's going on, because realize our program got three main pillars. It's got education. STEM education is critically important. Actually, it's the most important thing for our program, because that's what the space agencies, that's what I'll say this, our sponsors are very interested in this, and we are too. I mean, there's a genuine interest. We've got great, Tanya Anderson's our director of education, got phenomenal. So it's like I said, education, then engineering, space flight engineering, and then space flight operations. And Will Marchant runs our operations side on the U.S. side. But the bottom line is that we're trying to continue pushing forward. I haven't seen anybody ask this question yet, but what's going to happen when the International Space Station goes away? That's
in 2030.
theoretically, yeah. And you kind of heard this. I talked about this and so did a bunch of other people
Right.
at the conference. Is that we're working with the commercial space stations. This is a challenge because we're trying to understand our business model. They're trying to understand how we fit into their business model. We're working with Axiom right now, pretty, well. We've had 3 flights with them to the International Space Station where their astronauts have used, the private astronauts have used our
Right.
equipment and talked to students, did a number of school contacts, and we're working with them on Axiom 4. They've got several different international astronauts going to be flying probably next year sometime.
All right,
So we're
here's the
doing that.
creme de la creme. You ready for this?
Yes.
He doesn't need ham radio because he's got Starlink, but what about Musk and the stuff he's building and he's sending up into space? Are you going to be working with, SpaceX at all? And, I'm just, because what he's planning on doing is amazing to me. I can't wait for this next integrated flight test 5. If they're going to try to catch the booster. The only
Well,
person
what we would like to be on is Starship that goes to the surface of the moon is where we would like
right,
to be.
right.
So yeah,
And
we're trying
bring
to
a repeater. Bring a repeater and leave it there.
Yeah, exactly.
That would
One
be
of the proposals, I'll say this, one of the proposals for Apollo, because Owen Garriott was one of them that potentially could have gone to the surface of the moon if those other missions, the Saturn V's you see at Kennedy Space Center, at Marshall, and at JSC, Johnson Space Center, are all flight. Those are all flight. They were going to fly Apollo 18, 19,
right.
and 20. So one of the proposals that was being bantied about was putting a ham radio on one of the rovers,
Wow.
which would have been really cool. But I think what we're doing is we're trying to talk to all of these folks. We don't know who's gonna be interested in doing this stuff, and some of them, like I said, what we're all trying to do is understand each other and the business model of how we would get on. And they're commercial, so they're supposed to be making money.
Right.
So then where does ham radio fit into all of that? From the perspective of, we've got to make sure that there's no pecuniary interest here, that it's no commercial.
Right.
But at the same time, we're taking up space that they could be using for a paying customer. So,
Right.
these are things we're trying to mutually work out and things like that. But, they're the big thing is they're talking to us.
That's good. That's good. Because I took humanities in high school, and I'll tell you this, it all relates. And you could see that by like what Polaris Dawn is going to be. That is going to blow my mind. If they ever get the weather report right and they can get out there and do that, because they're not going to the space station. So they have to know that they can come back when the time is right to come back. So they got no lifeboat out there. It's just going to be the 4 of them. And that's amazing to me that they're going to do a commercial private company is going to do spacewalks. That blows my mind with a whole new spacesuit and everything that they built just for that, but that helps NASA too, because they're doing whatever the scientific gains they make. They're working with NASA at the same time, and SpaceX. And I honestly, as amazing as Artemis is, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I forget who said it, but anybody still working on disposable rockets is going backwards. And there's going to come a time when every rocket is reusable 100%. Now, how long? We don't know. 23 was the max, and that one ended up blowing up the last time they had a booster that made that many flights. And with the big ship, he's got ideas that nobody ever thought. They might have thought of it before, but nobody ever tried it. And Musk is going to
had the money to try it. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
I worked at NASA for almost 36 years, and I'm still supporting NASA as a consultant right now. So, the situation is that, the budget that NASA has, after Apollo, is there. What you're getting for your tax dollar from NASA is amazing. What I will say also is that you got to think of Artemis as part of a whole puzzle, and it has taken, because part of my portfolio when I was at NASA headquarters was included commercial cargo and commercial crew. It has taken us a long
Right.
time. If you think about that, the first private astronaut flew in, I think it was 2006. Mike Melville. It was 2004, 2006. Don't
Yeah.
quote me.
Yeah.
But
Right
that
around there.
time, and then the next time that happened was, well over a decade, almost 2 decades later. And so, at least 15 years later. So, the situation is that space is hard. And so, having this government private association, I think is fantastic. Um, because, like you said, NASA is going to still want to do research, and if they can do it without spending more money of government money on this stuff, fantastic. And that's
Right.
what SpaceX has accomplished, I think, now with and Northrop Grumman and SpaceX from a cargo perspective, is that these things are much more affordable. So that's good. Um, you know, you mentioned Polaris Dawn. The other interesting thing about Polaris Dawn is that they're flying um, at
400,
altitude.
like, yes, past the Van Allen belts.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is it's the highest since the Gemini flights, Gemini 11, I think it was. So it's they're doing some breakthrough activities with the SpaceX, with Inspiration first, and now Polaris Dawn, and
And
it's
that's what's amazing too. You got two billionaires that are coming up with these ideas and trying
yeah,
it. And
right,
Isaacman's going up. It's not like Musk. Musk's going to stay on the ground, but Isaacman's going up there with him. He's paying for it and
yeah,
he's going with him. And it's
yeah, right,
amazing to me that they fly fighter jets. What I heard was in all this delays they're having, they have some fighter jets down there that they're all pilots now too, and they
hmm,
go out and do formation flying. I want to go down there and see them. I want to see when
yeah.
they're going out flying because they got to
And
keep them in quarantine before the flight. I
so
think
they
the
can't
next
be with anybody else. So might as well
right.
fly in an airplane, right?
Right. It's just them in the planes. So one of them is a two-seater, I think. There's three of
Yeah.
them all together. They're like black and gray camouflage. They're
Yeah.
painted. But I didn't know what kind of planes they were. I just saw the picture. Anyway, so what do you want to tell people about ARISS and why they should join, support any way they can, pass the word around? Why? Why should we support ARISS? Go ahead,
Okay.
shout it out.
So,
Make your
so
plea.
yeah. So thank you for giving me that opportunity, because I'm running a nonprofit. So it's important to keep us alive. I think what we're doing, it's multidimensional. Okay. One is, I'll talk about the hams first. Okay. Because and that's we're providing an opportunity for the hams to do things that they couldn't do anywhere else. How many times you don't get very many opportunities to talk to an astronaut, but look, you've been successful. I've been successful. A lot of people, you figure out as a ham how it might work for you. My
Right.
working is that it's I wait till the space station's getting over the Atlantic Ocean, because I live on the East Coast. There's less hams at that
I
point.
got a friend up in Connecticut. He does the same thing. He ends up having long conversations with astronauts while they're way out over the Atlantic. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. So
It's
so 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 for hams, this is a phenomenal capability, and we want to continue growing it, for lunar missions, for other explorations, for other space stations in the future. So that's the incentive from a ham perspective. The other part that's ham is the STEM education, because we are bringing kids in, bringing youth in to do two things. One thing is to get them into to get them excited about and ultimately into careers, in science, technology, engineering, and math. That's important for this nation and the world, actually. But also, a number of them get excited about it, ham radio, and some teachers are setting up clubs in their schools and getting their students licensed. So it's pretty that I'll say this as an old guy. I want this hobby. I've always wanted this hobby to continue beyond, when I go away and others of us this age go away. And so the way you do that is you need to replenish with younger people. And I'm excited about Yoda. We've been partnering with Neil Rapp and the Yoda team. And they've been doing Eris Contacts, as part of their summer activities. We're doing it with Yoda in the Western Hemisphere as well as in Europe. And so, the more we can do, I mean, and to understand the gravity of it, we've worked with more than 1 million kids since we started on space station.
Wow.
Well over 1 million. And so those are and we're developing kits, radio kits for kids to get interested in STEM and in ham radio through a grant from ARDC. That was very critical that we got that grant, because
what is your webpage?
www.ariss.org. Very simple. And we have a donate button on the page. So, if folks want to donate, please, we really would appreciate any kind of donation, small or large, or, for those of us that are older, some of us have the opportunity of some stocks or bonds or whatever, or minimal distributions that need to be had. We'd be grateful for those too. So
when I go to that page, I'm getting a GoDaddy page. When I go to ARISS. I just turned 70 yesterday. Be nice to me.
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah, that's why I was in Wisconsin. My mom said she wanted to be with me for my birthday, and I had to go there. So all right. So on this page, let me see. I'm really at a loss tonight because I was having trouble with my computer and I couldn't do this stream the way I wanted to. I would normally be able to put the page right on the screen with us so we could show it to people. I can't right now. But it's ariss.org, and you can go there. Oh, it went right to the current status of the ISS. I don't want that. Yeah, there it is. Now, if you go there, you'll see a bunch of little kids on the screen, and there is a donate button. I see it up right there to the annual fund. Or what's ARISS star? What is that?
See, I've mentioned our radio kit. So our radio kit right now, it's called Sparky. Kids get to play with a software-defined radio. They learn about these invisible waves that are out there. STAR is space telerobotics using amateur radio, and that is something that Keith Pugh from our group and AMSAT provided some donations for in the beginning with the ARL Foundation, through the ARL Foundation. And we're using robots to through amateur radio to let students go through closed courses, do different kinds of activities, similar to what the Curiosity rover, the rovers around Mars do, and ultimately on the moon. They have a little mission control, and they can type in commands and move the vehicle. We've got a little slow scan television camera on it, so they can look at obstacles and get the slow scan image. You got to take some time, with these vehicles, because they're expensive. When I say vehicles, I mean like rovers, Mars rovers. And so they got to make sure they don't hit the obstacles and things like that with their little robot. And so, and the robots, cool. The cool thing about it is that you can use APRS. And if you're in the footprint of the space station, if two schools are in the footprint of the space station, they can send commands.
They can message each other through
to message to
APRS.
each of those robots. Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
and then we've also got a Discord capability with it, where they can actually anywhere around the world go through our mission control system and talk to another robot.
Speaking of rovers, the first rover that landed on Mars, one of the scientists who worked on it was a classmate of mine. We weren't pals in high school, but he did come to our reunion. Matthew Dallenbeck. I don't know if you ever worked with him. He helped build the first rover that they put on Mars, and I forget the name of it, but it wasn't Curiosity. It was another one. It was smaller. It's amazing the size of these rovers now.
Spirit or Opportunity, probably one of those.
That might have been a Spirit.
Yeah.
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 That was the one he worked on, and Opportunity. Those are the two they put up they were both up there at the same time,
right,
if I remember
right.
correctly. But
Correct.
yeah, all that stuff. And just to get a kid to wish, I mean, I think of me when I was a kid, I grew up in a kind of family that, well, you had the haves and the have-nots, and we were the have-nots. And you never thought you could possibly do anything like that. I want to tell every kid out there, there's not one kid in the world that can't grow up to be something amazing. I mean, look at JD Vance. I'm reading his book right now, blowing my mind. His childhood was the most horrible childhood you could imagine. But look at he's running for vice president now. So don't ever let anybody tell you can't do something. Anybody can do anything they want if they work at it and if they put enough blood and sweat and tears into it. And that's what this is about. That's what STEM is about, you know? So
Yeah.
I want to see, especially like Hope Lee. I mean, I look at her and I'm like, I might know a girl that's going to land on Mars someday. Who knows?
Yep.
You never.
If there's a ham that's going to go in space, Hope's going to be one of them. You know.
Yeah, yeah. You know Hope, and she came there and gave a nice presentation, and that was when I was just starting out my YouTube channel. I completely screwed up the video. I didn't get any audio of her, and I killed myself. I was so mad about it, but it was a wonderful event you had. You have any other events in the future, similar or something like that, at a different place? What's the story? You got anything coming up?
Not yet. We're still recovering from this last one, but you know what we tried to do was an all, you know, we all hands on deck on that one. You know, we really wanted to make that one a spectacular event.
Well,
and I was very proud of the team.
You people that are watching this, everybody should go make a donation to ARISS right now. I've done it in the past. I'm going to do it again. And I love the idea. I love what you're doing. And that's why I wanted to get you on here, because I said, you know, we don't have a lot of people watching right now. I think we got 6 people right at the moment. But this is going to stay online forever. So people can come back and watch it again and again and share it with your family, share it with your kids. And I'm looking between my monitors, I can see into my backyard. The deer are here, and they're mad at me because I haven't put corn out in a week. They want to kill me. But anyway, I just want you to know, Frank, I greatly appreciate you doing this. And yes, this will be on there, and you could share this too if you want, anywhere you want. I might take the video itself and edit it down and actually make a nice, concise video to put on my channel as well, because ARISS has to get credit for what they're doing. They're doing an amazing job. You're doing an amazing job, and keep it going, man. I want to. I mean, originally Gateway was supposed to be a space station that constantly went between the Earth and the Moon, and you would, if you wanted to land on the Moon, you would fly to the Gateway when it was by the Earth, and then go to the Moon, and then fly off it and land on the Moon, and then when it came around again, you get back on it and come back here. That was originally the plan. I think that was canceled by Obama. I'm not sure. So, but that would be cool if we could talk to people on the Moon. Oh, well,
the Gateway is right now. The Gateway is planned to be right behind the Moon in what's called an orbit that it's a Lagrange point, which is basically a stable point where they can do like a halo orbit around it. And it's a very unique orbit, and it's a pretty cool opportunity because you know, if you can get all the other stuff that's on Gateway away from, if you can get on an area where there's no blockages, you got some really nice views of the Earth and the Sun. So
right.
So that's what we're looking at, you know, is where the best place would be, and whether we could get permission to fly the equipment. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, we're looking at all different opportunities. There's we could probably get on one of these landers that are flying right now, the commercial landers, but they only last 14 days. After when the sun goes behind the moon, they die because they're 14 days of nighttime. So when the space agencies are able to allow these things to survive the night, that would be fantastic. And
just need a couple of bioanno batteries, some Anderson power poles. You're all set. We'll get it all set up for you. Right. Us hams, that's what we do. We tinker. We'll figure it out. We'll make it work. It's amazing. The whole thing is amazing, and I greatly appreciate ARISS. And thank you so much for coming on tonight, Frank. If you ever want to come on again, you got some news coming up, something exciting, let me know. Do you have a newsletter that people can sign up to on the website, like where you send out a monthly letter or something, giving status of what's going on, school contacts, that kind of thing? Or you just do it on your webpage?
It's on our webpage. The best thing to do, if you want to, for those that are, let me just say, for your hams that are out there listening to this, if you want to listen to, one of the coolest things is listening to one of these school contacts. And in the news section, we have a button, for knowing what contacts are coming up. And if it's in your area, we put all the questions the students have submitted. And so you can actually follow the contact. You can listen. You're not going to hear the students talk, or unless they're on live stream, which you could do, and listen to that at the same time.
Well, when the Italy station is doing the contact, I actually, one time I streamed that live on my channel. And is that okay, or am I violating copyright somewhere?
No, there's nothing there. No, you can do that.
So what I did was I put their stream on my computer and I restreamed their stream live, which was pretty cool. And then I did it again when Embry-Riddle did a thing, and Hope was the one that would organize the whole thing. And I streamed that live while it was happening. And that blew my mind. She was so efficient. They got 17 questions in on one pass. I was like, I don't hear 17 contacts in one pass. And she did 17 contacts. I thought it was amazing. So that was cool. And I like to promote it too, and let people know about it. And I get comments on it and stuff. And Don, he's my buddy. He's actually my buddy Alan's saying hi and thanks for the work and the legacy. And let's see. Here we got, thanks, Frank, for what you do. Is there any remote volunteer opportunities? Let me know. That's Don, W8CPT.
So, there are some, we're always looking for volunteer support. We almost exclusively volunteer. I'm volunteer, as a executive director. And so what I always tell people is think about what your passion is. And I know some people's passion is talking to the astronauts, but that's not the volunteer jobs we're looking for right now. But
there's enough people trying that.
Yeah, if you're into IT stuff, or you're into, I described our big things are operations, engineering and education. But we have a whole bunch of things. Somebody wants to generate a newsletter, as you brought up,
Yeah.
We need more people to help us in various areas. And it doesn't always have to be the 3 pillars. There's a lot of, groundwork that needs to be done. And you're still involved in the program. I mean, day to day, we tell people, we tell the students, welcome to the International Space Station. You're now a member of it. And that's the same thing as our team. We're part of this, space agency, ham radio activity.
Do you ever, I know people that they specialize in getting government grants for things. I'm sure you have people working on that, right?
We always can use more business development people, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking of getting corporate sponsors to fundraise, get money from corporate sponsors. I thought that would be cool to help keep the functioning of the ARISS all the way, so you can get to more students if you had more money, if
That's
you have
right.
more equipment, So maybe
Yeah.
we can get some of these Ingersoll Rand or Morton Fire Call, or one of these companies to kick in a couple of $1,000s a year. That would be a big help, right?
Right.
Maybe pay
And
off the dinner we had under the Saturn V.
right, right. We are getting we are working on getting some stuff. We did, like I mentioned, the ARDC grant was a really important thing.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, we're trying to make sure we've got some space agency grants. We had a little National Science Foundation grant that we got with ISS National Lab, which is one of our other partners in this. And frankly, the space agencies and ISS National Lab provides a lot of support, but it's in kind. It's not dollars. It's in kind, which is
Right.
vitally important. I mean, the time that an astronaut, one of our contacts, if you use the commercial model, because private astronauts are flying on space station now, use the commercial model. One of our school contacts would be about $43,000. So for each one, we do up to this year we're probably going to hit 100 school contacts. So you
That's
think
amazing.
about that. That's a lot of money. I mean,
it's over $4 million. Yeah, it's a lot
of money that the space agencies are I'll call it donating to the amateur radio community to allow STEM education to happen. So I think we do need I want to emphasize we do need real dollars to get our business done day to day. And so if there's individuals that are good at business development, we'd love to hear from them. Okay, that have that background.
The last time I made a donation, you guys were nice enough to send me a challenge coin with a nice letter thanking me, and I appreciate that. And I think I'm going to do it again because I'd love to have another challenge coin because I'm greedy.
and Rosalie White from our group is the one that handles that. And
yeah.
The other thing she's instrumental in, she's the ARIS liaison to ARL. And so she does that, and she also is responsible for getting our metrics together, because we need to let you talk to some company, you got to show them that you're not just doing a couple students every year. We're reaching to about 50 to 100,000 kids each year, if you will. And so having those metrics are as important as doing the school contact, if you will, because it keeps the money and the in-kind support flowing.
Wonderful, Frank. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll let you go now. We've been on for an hour. I don't know if you knew that, but yeah, we've been on for about an hour. And thank you so much for your time. And if I could do anything for you, I get in touch and I will try to do something for you. You got something big coming up, you want to get it out and let people know about it, I'm willing to show it. I got a bunch of other ham guys that have ham channels that probably would be interested in talking to you also. So you never know. We'll see what we come up with. But yeah, I'm definitely going to make another contribution this week. And thank you so much. Have a great night.
Good night. Everyone, take care. Thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. There you go. Pretty good. Pretty good little thing. Frank's got a lot of knowledge, man. He knows what he wants to do. He knows where he want to do it. So I will say to you all, remember what I always say. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, at least not without me. 73.